much for the Carbondale Public Library being our host this evening and letting us use all the wonderful equipment and everything. Uh, I'm Sarah Faye Martin. I'm the president of AAUW this season, and we are just very happy to see everybody who's here. And thank you so much for the hostesses who provided the food for us. It's delicious, I must say. And we're very happy to have people on Zoom this evening with us because the weather sometimes just doesn't allow us to come out. And I am now going to hand you over to Martha.
Thank you, Sarah Faye. I'm Martha Ellard, and I am the membership chair for the branch, Carbondale branch of AAUW. Here to say a few words about AAUW. AAUW, or the American Association of University Women, now calls itself AAUW because we're not all women and we're not all in universities. So about 170,000 members. We have about 1,000 local branches, of which Carbondale is one. We're founded in 1881, so it's an old organization, but it also promotes a lot of cutting edge research as well. The national organization is one of the largest sources of funding for graduate women and awards grants and fellowships, and it's one of the largest scholarship programs for women in the world. It also funds pioneering research on women, girls, and education. Our mission statement is very simple. It's on the back of the yearbook: to advance gender equity for women and girls through research, education, and advocacy. Our Carbondale branch was founded in 1927, so we have a big anniversary coming up. And it's affiliated with AAUW Illinois, state organization. What do? We present monthly programs open to the public, such as this one, May through September through May. And we award scholarships to women students at SIU. We have a scholarship program as well. Well, today is Jane Addams Day, and I just want to say a little bit about that. Jane Addams Day is celebrated in Illinois to honor the life of Jane Addams, who is a native Illinoisan and a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And it recognizes Addams' contributions to her home state and to the world and her commitment to peace and justice. She is considered to be the founder of the social work profession in the US. And I want to just say a word about how our AAUW branch contributed to the establishment of the holiday. This holiday was created after students from the Dongola Unit School District, Dongola, as a class project, and they lobbied legislators in 2005 to create Illinois' first commemorative holiday to honor a woman. The students had noticed that there were so many holidays named after men, and there was not one named after a woman. So the student's teacher was a member of our AAUW branch, and so was the experienced lobbyist who was instrumental in getting the laws passed. And in 2000,
She is a registered dietitian who works with University of Illinois Extension as a SNAP Ed educator. As SNAP Ed educator, Toni Kay offers evidence-based nutrition education and obesity prevention programs to support changes that promote health and wellness in community sites, targeting limited resource families. Toni Kay partners with food pantries, schools, child care programs, and social service agencies to build healthier communities. In addition, she facilitates the Southern Illinois Food Pantry Network, which works to raise awareness of food insecurity and increase healthy food access across nearly 100 food pantries in the southernmost 16 counties of Illinois. Toni Kay received an MS in nutrition from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Prior to joining University of Illinois Extension, she worked with the Illinois Department of Human Services, SIUC Head Start, and St. Louis District Dairy Council. She's a lifelong resident of Southern Illinois and resides in Carterville with her husband and 2 children. So let's welcome Toni Kay Wright.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I do a lot in emergency food or food insecurity. You heard my whole history and everything I've done all my life. And it makes me think I don't feel like I've had so many jobs, but when I hear them all, I'm like, wow, I've been a lot of places, done a lot of things. So again, I'm excited to be here as part of the Illinois Extension team, but more importantly, our Southern Illinois Food Pantry Network. Joe mentioned briefly about the Southern Illinois Food Pantry Network. Like many other organizations in Southern Illinois, we've worked very, very collaboratively. And so we cover the lower 16 counties of Southern Illinois and the Catch On to Health Consortium continued to follow that model. But our food pantry network here in Southern Illinois is a little bit newer. We're just years old, well, 7 years old now. 2018, we were founded through some just brainstorming and some collective work where our food pantries seem to work. They work with the food bank, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But a lot of them work in a silo. So we have like in rural Elkville, we have one small pantry that's operated by a church. They don't partner with the food bank. But then here in Carbondale, we have Victory Dream Center, who serves thousands of families each year. And so and then we have Salvation Army in Williamson County that has a large organization behind them. And so we found that our food pantries operate very differently based on the type of organization they're in. And so they just really didn't have lots of opportunities to network and to share. And we found that there's lots of need for that sharing. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So when I was asked to talk, I was really asked to talk about food insufficiency. And so we hear the term food insufficiency. We also hear food insecurity. And more recently, we've been talking about nutrition security. Oh, there we go. Maybe I need to point it toward the actual computer. So originally, food insecurity was really addressing the lack of food. We just wanted to put food in people's bellies. And about 3 or 4 years ago, the White House actually released the nutrition security, the pillars to create a more nutrition secure environment. Our food pantry network, our food security summit, we still talk about food insecurity and food security because we know that people eat food. And when we start talking about nutrition, we really move more to that scientific base, making sure that we're getting the right nutrients to be healthy. So even though we believe highly in the importance of having healthy foods available, locally, we are still going to really talk about healthy food access and food insecurity, with nutrition security being kind of on the backbone. But it really is important to make sure that we're providing the right kinds of foods for people to meet their cultural needs and their health needs. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those health needs and what we see in individuals who visit food pantries and who suffer from food insecurity. Oh, the end. Close your eyes. So when we talk, so high food security means we know we have enough food to eat. We don't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from. But people who are in very low food security, they really struggle with knowing where their next meal is coming from or when the next time they're going to get to eat is. And so we're most concerned about people in low food security or very low food security portions in their life. And so that's where we will see changes in their buying habits. You might see people put food in their pockets as they come to a public event, looking for ways to take food with them every chance they get. And they won't finish everything in front of them because they want to save some for a little bit later. And so being concerned about individuals that have low food security or very low food security, they generally are changing their eating habits based on what food is available at that given time. So if we look at the state of Illinois, 1 in 10 individuals suffers from food insecurity. But 1 in 3 families that have food insecurity don't make enough money to qualify, or make too much money to qualify for nutrition related programs such as WIC or SNAP. In Illinois, our SNAP program is LINK. They make too much money to be able to participate in programs like with buying enough food or having enough food in their homes. And so they really rely on our food pantries to fill that gap. And food pantries are not on any type of public assistance. And then 2 out of 3 food insecure individuals are still trying to decide whether they're going to pay their bills or pay for medicine or to buy food. And so that's a lot of people making very hard choices that we shouldn't have to make in a world where we do have as much food waste as we have. And our numbers in Illinois, yes, please. Our numbers in Illinois, you can see we range from about 13% to almost 20%, 19.4%. And so this map is from Map the Meal Gap, which is from Feeding America, who does all the hunger related statistics. And so the darker color the county, the higher the food insecurity rate is. Again, we're much higher in all of our counties than the state rate. And our number is approximately 50,000 individuals are struggling to have enough food to eat in the lower 16 counties of Illinois. And so that's a big number. And you can see the numbers based on county. Again, this data is from 2022, and it's the most current data available. And so all of our counties have a pretty high incidence of food insecurity. Randolph County is our lowest county at 13.3%. And Alexander or Pulaski County are our 2 highest counties. When we talk about food that we find in food pantries, a lot of them are canned items. That's not a bad thing. We just want to make sure that if we have canned items, we're selecting the healthier versions of canned items. We do need shelf-stable items for our unhoused population. And then just for shelf life, some of our food pantries are only open once a month. Some of them are open every day, and some of them are open once a week. So all of our food pantries operate on different hours. But oftentimes our canned items are ultra processed. So we want to look for items that are less processed or have less additives. They're very high in salt or sodium. So looking for lower salt alternatives, such as vegetables in low sodium or with no added salt, or frozen items that would not be shelf stable. But the canned vegetables or canned soups, looking for healthier choices of soups, no added salt, lower in sodium, are some of the things that we want to look for on food labels for that. And then they're oftentimes also high in added sugars. So looking at cereals that have less sugar, fruits in natural juices, fruits in light syrup versus heavy syrup, looking for ways to reduce sugar. Because research shows that people who are using the food pantry also have higher incidence of diabetes, heart disease, and diet-related diseases. And so looking for opportunities to have healthier foods in our food pantries is highly important. And so, there is a program called Supporting Wellness at Pantries. It's a stoplight system that focuses on trying to get healthier foods in pantries. And it really encourages pantries to highlight which foods are healthier. If you've visited the Victory Dream Center food pantry, they have implemented some of the inventorying system and some of the swap messages. However, in Southern Illinois, we also have the Catch On to Health Consortium that does catch programming in schools, and they also catches a curriculum for childhood for schools, and it also has a stoplight system for healthy eating as well. And so what we've tried to do in our region is create some of those very synergistic messages of with catch, it's go, slow, and whoa, to get kids excited about healthy eating. And so some of those messages that we have going on in our schools about healthier foods, we've tried to replicate at Victory Dream Center's food pantry. And so if you visit their pantry, they do have their green, their healthier foods first, followed by their yellow foods, the, media are so healthy. And then red foods too, because again, it's not that we're forbidding red foods or encouraging people not to eat red foods. It's, we want them to eat less of that, have a smaller portion of it, pair it with healthier foods. All foods fit into, a healthy diet. It's really about portion size and how often we have those. And so again, just trying to create those healthier messages. And so on the font side, the other thing that we really like to talk about is sometimes our food insecure neighbors struggle with having the right kitchen equipment and utensils. And so we see lots of canned goods now with pop top lids. And so if you're looking at making a donation to a food pantry, try to find those items that have pop top lids. And that will help either our individuals who don't have a permanent house or with the neighbors or with friends or using shelters or even living on the streets. It still makes that food accessible to them, that you don't have to have a can opener to use it. Also think about single serving items because they sometimes have a plastic film on them, like the fruit cups or the vegetable cups that might be a single serve where it just has the plastic top on it. Again, we've already talked about the veggies with no added salt, fruits with no added salts. When we look at soups, we really encourage you to look for soups that have added protein to them and vegetables. So maybe not just a chicken noodle soup, but something with chicken and vegetables in it, or beef and vegetables in it, to get those combination foods. And then not all of our food pantries partner with the food bank, but a lot of our pantries do partner with food bank. And so we really encourage working with our pantries on what complements. So our pantries oftentimes get dry beans, pasta, rice from our food banks. So that's not something they need donated, but they don't hardly ever get pasta sauce. So they might be giving families lots and lots of pasta or lots and lots of beans, but no sauce to go along with it. So really be thinking about the types of things that the pantry might not receive, some of those foods that are not commodity foods. There is a project happening. It's been happening for about the last year, the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program, LFPA, and in Illinois, we call it Illinois Eats. But that has been a program that our food banks are working with local farmers to get more produce in our food pantries. And so we have seen a tremendous improvement in the amount of fresh local produce that our local food pantries are getting. So much to the fact that it's hard for them to store it. If they're only a once a week pantry and they're getting all of this produce, they do have difficulty getting it out. And so I have seen on Facebook that some of these pantries are having to put it on their steps and say, come get, because they don't have the storage to keep it, or maybe they're not open for another 2 weeks. And so it's not going to last. And so being aware of some of those instances where they're getting too much produce that they're not able to distribute it to all of their participants. I know the Rotary Serves Food Shared Use Kitchen has started, our BEC has started a food pantry here in Carbondale. And a lot of that is rescue food that he is getting from other pantries that they're leaving on the curb because they can't get rid of it. And some of that he is processing into meals. And so again, that's just looking at ways to reduce that food waste and then to pay it forward and continue to feed people. With our food pantry network, one of the so when we formed, we were just an organization trying to connect food pantries with resources and connect each other for learning. And it didn't take long for people to kind of see what we were doing. And we were called and they're like, we want to give you money. And all of our organizations were like, you can't take money. You can, they take their cut and everybody works for an organization. So we didn't have an easy button to accept money. And so we talked about becoming a 501c3, and then we actually were put into contact with the Southern Illinois Community Foundation. And we kind of talked about what we were trying to do. And so they have become our fiscal agent, and we have formally formed the Southern Illinois Food Pantry Network. And we do now have an easy button. If somebody calls us and tells us they have some money for us, we do have a process that we can accept it and take it. And everything that we do, we pass it on to food pantries in a variety of ways. And so when we originally formed our food pantry network, we did a lot of conversations with our food pantries of what do you need? And the thing that kept coming up was cold storage, refrigerators and freezers. Either they were old and ancient. We had a couple of food pantries that didn't even have cold storage. They were only dealing with non-perishables. And so we did a mini grant because we had, I think it was $10,000 or $12,000, which is not going to buy very many refrigerators and freezers. We had $190,000 in requests from our food pantries. And we only had $10,000 or $12,000 to distribute. And after a couple other things, we actually ended up with a funder that would fully fund. So we ended up purchasing 63 refrigerator and freezer units for 36 different food pantries across our Southern Illinois region. And that was one of our early first on successes. And it's time to repeat that now that we have the LFPA foods coming in. We know our pantries need more cold storage, and whether they're replacing the old stuff or because like Victory Dream Center has like 10 freezers. So some of them are probably 20 or 30 years old, and some of them are new. And so, as we were distributing these refrigerators and freezers, we actually did a lot of site visits and got to see exactly what they were working with. And so, 63 units went into our food pantries about right before COVID 4 years ago. So when we talk about what are some of the programs that are helping with food access needs and healthy food access, the first one we think about is SNAP and WIC. So our link cards, being able to buy groceries, choosing the groceries you want. And the WIC program ran through the health department to support women, infants, and children. But again, sometimes those are underutilized and lots of restrictions and lots of requirements, but they are doing great jobs in helping meet that. We have over 100 food pantries across the region. I'll show you a map momentarily of that. We missed the map. We should have already seen the map. We also have meal sites for congregate meals, whether that's senior meal programs. Here in Carbondale, we have the Feed My Lamb meals. We Feed My Sheep. Good Samaritan Ministries has a meal program. So lots of congregate meal sites. We cannot forget about our childcare and our school meals. They participate in another federally funded programs, but they do a great job of meeting some of those food needs. And then we also have backpack programs, whether they're ran through individual churches or through the Gumdrops program, but we know thousands and thousands of kids get weekend food bags. Those are just a few of the healthy food access. Can you think of some others that we have going on? The warming center they distribute snacks. And so, yes, they're helping meet that hunger and food insecurity issues. Farmers markets accept SNAP and do link match. So that's a way to help. And link match is farmers market, neighborhood co-op. You use your link card there and then they'll match up to $25 for specifically for fruits and vegetables. It's a program that really is promoting fruit and vegetable consumption. And that is a great way to use it. And how many are you reaching? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one of the things that we did early on in our food pantry network, in addition to the cold storage, is we were working with WSIL was doing the SAC hunger events. And so we actually staged ourselves at those events and we actually used the SWAP criteria to characterize food as green, yellow, and red and to identify what percentage of food donated was healthy foods. And only about 19% of the food that was donated through those large scale food drives. We also did it with Boy Scouts in a couple of communities. So not just SAC hunger. With SAC hunger, we got fewer expired foods. I don't want to say expired, fewer sell by date foods. With Boy Scouts, we get a lot of past the sell by dates. Doesn't mean we can't use them or serve them. I mean, we do look at dates and there are some, we can keep them for a while. And then we found that if people really do want to buy what pantries need or what an organization needs. And so the second year we did SAC hunger, they did it in connection with Kroger and not the football games. And we stood out the front of Kroger's and we handed out shopping lists and it said what aisle the item was on. And, we guided some of the donation and that actually increased the donations dramatically into getting the foods that complement what comes off the food bank and to get those healthier choices. Some people would buy everything on the list and some people would buy 10 of one item on the list or, whatever. But again, having that list and telling people what they want really helped spur more donations and more healthier donations. So just keep that in mind as well when you're looking at donations. We have lots of organizations that are supporting food access in Southern Illinois. We have some that are non-traditional. I feel like we were able to garner more support with our media and telling stories during COVID because food insecurity, food access became such a hot topic. I mean, even people who had money still had issues with accessing food during COVID. Grocery store shelves were empty. And a lot of people don't realize that our food pantries shop in the grocery store just like we do as individuals. And so they were oftentimes limited on how many canned items they might be able to buy. So they were really relying on just the foods that came from the food bank at that time and really couldn't take advantage of some of the things that they're buying from the grocery stores. So the media became a pretty big partner as a result of COVID and has kind of continued to tell those stories of food access and food insecurity. The Community Foundation, we kind of started a conversation pre-COVID, and during COVID, they handled a lot of our emergency money. And so during COVID is when we actually formed our partnership for him to accept all of the money that was going to come through the food pantry network. And it wasn't until COVID and us being able to talk about what food pantries we had while they were trying to distribute the funds to them. Our Medicaid managed care organizations have lots of dollars they have to spend in communities, and they have been a strong partner. That's who was one of the funders of our large scale food donation. Central Laborers Council and some of our other unions do a lot of food drives. And so looking at trying to reach more food pantries across the entire region or trying to look at healthier donations. The Pashard Foundation has done a lot of donations to our food pantries to really support children and their needs, their hunger needs. One of our joint projects with Southern Illinois Healthcare and Illinois Extension is we have mobile teaching kitchen carts. And so not only do we use it at food pantries, but we've also been at farmers markets, and we've actually been here in the Carbondale Library a couple of times. But it's a mobile kitchen cart that's approved by the health department to do nutrition education. And so we bring the kitchen cart on site, we create a healthy recipe, and then we give people the opportunity to taste it. And what we have found is like somebody will say, I don't like cauliflower, but we made these really awesome cauliflower veggie tots that was basically a tater tot made out of cauliflower. It had a little cheese in it. And they're like, they would have never made that recipe had they not been able to taste it. And so really being able to provide that nutrition education and a taste at that time, or how to use that food, has been a really important piece of getting people excited about healthier foods. We've done some health screenings in food pantries. And with that, we've heard, I haven't been to the doctor in 10 years. You know, again, when we were talking about people's needs and where they're at, if you don't have transportation and you don't have food and you don't have housing, going to the doctor is not the most important thing. But when we've been on site to do blood pressure and glucose screenings, identify issues, they're thankful and grateful for that. They want to take the time to go to the doctor and have that done. And so again, that's been a very valuable piece of being in the places and spaces that people need services and being able to develop those relationships. I mentioned a couple of things about research. The nutrition and dietetics program at SIU has been instrumental in helping us do data crunching and surveying and all of that good stuff with some of the data coming out of the food pantry network. So what are some of the and many mores? Yeah, the school districts, whether they're doing their meal programs, there's been some because I'm looking at ways to do a grab and go breakfast or not the traditional breakfast, just to get kids excited about eating breakfast. Some of our schools offer after school programs and after school snacks. So sometimes our kids are eating breakfast, lunch, and a snack at school, especially in childcare. They may be eating breakfast, lunch, and supper. And so again, getting those kids excited about healthy foods, getting those kids excited about really eating foods. And again, it doesn't matter what their age, whether they're kindergarten or seniors in high school, they need to be eating the foods. If they're not healthy, if they're not eating, if they're not nourished, they're not ready to learn. And so if you don't have breakfast by 10 o'clock, you're not thinking about math or reading or writing. You're thinking about when am I going to eat again? And we've all been in a situation where we've been hungry and we've been supposed to be concentrating on something. We can't concentrate because we're hungry. And so we want kids to be able to be fed and be nourished so that they can take advantage of all the things the teachers are trying to teach them. Well, we're excited you're giving them a shout out. Mhm. Anybody else? Cristados and the Collaborative Kitchen does some meal pay it forward. Um, just a few years ago, we had a grant from No Kid Hungry where we worked with Head Start program. And we kind of did a semi-cooked meal bag. And so the families received a full meal, but they cooked it together when they got home. So we did like egg roll in a bowl and fresh broccoli and fresh oranges. So it was a well-balanced meal. The Collaborative Kitchen did all the food for us, provided a little bit of nutrition education, and then it went home with the kids on Fridays. And oftentimes it was on the bus, the bus drivers were the ones who distributed that to families. Again, it was a short project through No Kid Hungry, but we did 5 meal kits that we got some really great pictures from of kids and families cooking together. Are there projects that you can think of? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, and they have volunteers, different volunteer groups who help serve that meal. And there's a waiting list because it is so popular, because the people who have gone and served want to do it again and again and again. And so they do have a waiting list for those people who want to serve. So yeah, they've done some great things. It's taken them a while, and they've really grown a lot in the last couple of years. I will also mention, Michelle kind of mentioned individual people and seeing that need and meeting that need. Even gardeners, local produce. If you garden and you have an abundance of tomatoes, and it doesn't have to be abundance, it doesn't have to be a full bucket load. Walking in with just a few extra groceries or a few extra cucumbers or some zucchini, they're willing to take that and to pass that along to the people that come through their doors. So if you garden and you have extra, that's a great place to take it instead of having it go to waste. To food pantries. Absolutely. Murfreesboro has a really nice one too at the Presbyterian Church. And I know 724 did ministries tried to do community garden too, and they really struggled with getting it some volunteers to help it. So community gardens take a lot of work. You got to have the people that are passionate about gardening. We are also the Food Pantry Network and Illinois Extension. We're doing Illinois Hunters for the Hungry. And so the Food Pantry Network is paying the meat processors for anybody who brings in a legally hunted deer to be ground into ground venison. And then all of that ground venison goes into various food pantries across the region. this is my last slide before questions, and thank you. I was gonna go back to the slide that had the map of our food pantries, just so you could see all the food pantries across our region. Some of them are in very rural, small communities. Some you'll see right on top of each other. The unique thing about our region in Southern Illinois is we have 2 food banks that cover our region. So St. Louis area food bank covers Williamson, Jackson, that direction, and then Tri-State Food Bank out of Evansville, Indiana covers Union County, Johnson County, and then all the way up and over. So we technically do not have a food bank in Southern Illinois. We do have a satellite produce distribution that Tri-State has out of Vienna, but all they're doing is distributing produce. They're not distributing all of the food bank foods from there. So both of our regions are served by food banks outside of the immediate Southern Illinois area. But again, not all of our food pantries partner with a food bank. The Elkville Christian Church, they have a very small pantry. It is solely supported by the church members of that community and any other donations they might get from the community. Dongola Food Pantry is kind of the same way. And then we've got Victory Dream Center and Good Samaritan here in town that get lots and lots of food from the food bank and other donations. Victory Dream has a relationship with Sam's. So anything from Sam's that is being pulled from the shelves can end up at Victory Dream. And a lot like Murfreesboro gets from Kroger. And so different stores have different relationships with different pantries. The issue with Sam's Wholesale in Marion is they require you to have a refrigerated truck to be able to get their food for food safety purposes. And Victory Dream is the only food pantry in Southern Illinois that has a refrigerated truck. A few of ours have some box trucks and bigger trucks, but a lot of our pantries staffed by volunteers are using their own personal vehicles to pick up and transport food. So food pantries are really that initial access point, even though there are lots of other services available to support families getting food. But again, food pantries, and again, depending on whether they partner with food bank or not, the rules may differ from one food pantry to the other. Victory Dream has a very open, anybody who can get there can go there. But Murfreesboro Food Pantry, you have to be a resident of Jackson County to receive food from there. So each food pantry can develop some of their own rules in regards to how they serve their communities. What questions do you have for me?
And I'd just like to point out, please, if anybody has any questions, we would love for everybody in Zoom to be able to hear those questions as well. So if you could please raise your hand and I will bring the mic over to you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Do you know where the agricultural bill is right now with SNAP?
It is up for reauthorization.
Right, and it's supposed to be reauthorized hopefully by the end of the year. And if it's not, they're fearful that, you know, SNAP might be greatly reduced with the next administration. I really urge people to advocate, you know, online or wherever, or write letters about the importance of SNAP and WIC, and make that known to our senators and representatives. And a lot of people don't even realize that SNAP's in the Farm Bill, you know. But if we want to advocate for that, I think that's an important thing to do.
I will mention Dr. Guterslaw is a researcher that has done a lot on SNAP research and food insecurity. And one of the things that his research has shown is if you really want to impact food insecurity, you will raise SNAP benefits so that people can choose and buy the foods that they want instead of relying on the emergency food system or the food pantry system where we're giving people foods that they may or may not eat. And so Dr. Guterslaw is one who says we should definitely be raising SNAP benefits.
And do you think SNAP will ever come to the point of like WIC where it's, you know, nutritious foods are more mandated? Because now on SNAP, you can buy all the soda you want and chips and
So SNAP Education, the program that I work for, is funded to really provide that education piece for people to be able to make healthier choices. So our charge is that we are in the places and spaces to be able to provide that nutrition education. So I do more policy systems and environmental supports, and we do have a group of staff that do direct education. So they go into schools and they teach students about good nutrition and physical activity and making those healthier choices. We really focus on giving people choice to make their own purchasing decisions. And that's the basis of the SNAP program. And to be eligible for the WIC program, you have to be identified as having a nutrition risk. And that is what those food packages that WIC has is based on, those nutrition risks that they're trying to prevent in pregnant women, breastfeeding women, infants and children.
I think it's a very great program.
And we've seen lots of changes too in regards to the amount of fresh fruits and vegetables. Again, I can remember when the only fruit that was available was fruit juice. You know, we didn't really focus on those whole foods, fruits and vegetables, but now you can buy canned, frozen, and fresh produce with your WIC packages.
Thank goodness.
Some years ago, the Voices for Illinois Children looked at what was happening in Illinois as far as food for children. And Alexander County as well as Franklin County were still the lowest ones. And I think their numbers were 18%, which was on the board earlier. And it seems not to have decreased in a number of years. So you still have people just as hungry in 2024 as they were in 1995, 1997. What's going on with that? Do you have any information about that? Inquiry minds want to know.
I think, I think when we look at especially Alexander County and the foods that are available, up until 2 years ago, they didn't really have a grocery store in town. People were relying on Dollar General stores and the food pantries to really, or traveling out of state to meet their food needs. And so some of it is what's available in the community and what's available. But yeah, we just really need to encourage people to take advantage of the programs and services that are available and looking for saying it's okay, because we do have a lot of prideful community members that don't want to take that extra, helping hand. And, we encourage, if you're eligible to use that, because then you can use those other funds that you might have on other things that you need. And so those funds are there to help you through that moment of crisis. And so encouraging people while they need it to utilize the services that they're eligible for.
I was going to just make another comment. Dollar General, so many small towns around here have a Dollar General and a Casey's, and that's where they get a lot of their food. And Dollar General, of course, has no produce. I heard that they may be starting to offer something like apples or something that you know anything about that?
So we do have some convenience stores that are offering some grab and go fruits, more apples, bananas, oranges. Dollar General has created DG markets. There are a few in our region. Susser has one. Susser. And so DG markets do have more produce, frozen foods, and even refrigerated foods. And then they have expanded in a lot of their stores, more refrigerated and freezer, maybe not just produce. So there is some movement toward healthier foods. When we originally did, before DG Markets came to our area, when we originally did the nutrition analysis of food donations, we did go into Dollar General, and they do have available shelf-stable milk and fruits in no added. So there are healthier choices that are canned. You just have to look a little bit harder, and they may not be stocked as greatly. But some of our convenience stores and dollar stores do have some healthier options to choose from.
Would there be any way of educating, I mean, having some kind of education, at least at those stores of what might be your healthier options? In other words, if you're really interested in having a nutritious meal for your family, what items might you seek out if that's your only store?
Yeah, I know when we've done our food drives to try to highlight healthier foods in grocery stores, they haven't been open to having we call them shelf talkers, but point of purchase displays, because most of the time those are being paid for by companies and they don't want to inhibit the view of the products. And so in thinking that way, I would say they would not be open to that.
Are you aware of any legislation that will decrease the eligibility or increase the eligibility for an example, like widows or widowers who are on widows benefits and, they make that $75 or $100 above and are not eligible for SNAP, but are in definite food insecurity?
Unfortunately, no. And even for our senior population that rely on SNAP benefits, their allotment, like we hear that over and over. And so, the food bank does have a senior box program, commodity supplemental food program, but the eligibility requirements are very black and white, and they don't take into consideration those stories of fixed incomes or what your assets might be. That they're very, very black and white, and that empathetic and that story is not there. I will say, so during COVID, we had free school meals for all. Even when kids were homeschooled, they had free school meals for all. And even up until a year after, we had free school meals for all. It was nationwide USDA requirement. In Illinois, so some for free meals for all students, regardless of income eligibility. Illinois has passed it, but it has not funded it. So we have the law that we can provide it, but it's one of those unfunded things. And what we find when we offer free school meals for all is that all kids will, like, your meal participation actually increases because it reduces that stigma of only the free kids eat, only the reduced kids eat. All kids can eat. Parents start understanding that their kids can eat free school meals, and they're like, I'm not packing your lunch anymore. You can go eat that food for free. And so even families that can afford school meals, we actually see all participation in both breakfast and lunch increases when states have passed and funded all kids eat. So that is legislation that has passed in the last year or so, but it's just not funded. I don't know. I know there's at least 4 states that have funded it and are implementing it. At least 4. I'm sure there might be more, but no. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to come.
Great job. I know it's really helped me. I've spoken to Toni Kay in the past because with our foundation, we try to do help children in these situations. But I need to elevate some of the guidelines, I think. And even when just taking things to the food pantry, we sometimes just take what we have around, and you've made us all think about choosing a little more carefully what we're taking. So thank you. So knowledgeable. You did a great job. If anybody wants to reach you, how would they, or your organization, how would they do that? And we have some food pantry donations that people brought in, which we want to thank everybody for that. And we want to talk to you about that before you leave also, okay? So, great program. Next month, we have our program on January 21st. And I think it will also be a great program, and we hope that you will come. It's human trafficking in Southern Illinois. And our guest speaker will be Shelley Taylor Page. She goes by Cheryl Page, Professor of Law and Director of Experiential Learning at SIU School of Law. And the program will entail an explanation of what is human trafficking, how it impacts Southern Illinois, which is such a critical thing for us to raise our awareness of, and what we can do to be better informed and educated. So the meeting will be here at the Carbondale Public Library. We're debating if we will be downstairs. So we'll let you know. The business meeting at 6 and the social time at 6:30 and the program at 7. We'll also have it on Zoom, just in case weather or circumstances interfere. We'd like you to join one way or the other. I think then that we are ready to dismiss and stay a little while. The Carbondale Library does close at 8, but they're always very good with us. Liz, thank you for all of your help back there also. running
Happy
the
to help.
show.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you. And we hope to see you next month. Happy holidays.